Mhm.
All right, here we go. I'm Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Gordon. Thanks everybody, Charlotte and Connie, who have Amy, who's co-hosted and putting this meeting together. Maya, can you mute? I'm hearing something. All right. So I jumped in and I said the third step prayer because I was going to say it anyway. Because what's a step 3 meeting without a third step prayer? But I'm an alcoholic. This year I celebrated 7 years sober. My sobriety date is April 1st, 2016. That's a pretty good day for a fool like me. I try not to take myself too seriously. I have a sponsor. I have a sponsorship family. My sponsor, she sponsors other people. My grand sponsor's here, and that's making me nervous. So I'm usually never nervous to tell my story to other alcoholics, usually because nobody that I know is in the room. And then I can just BS. I'm kidding. So, but look, step 3, man, let me tell you a little bit about me. We got 35 minutes, and it ain't hard to talk about step 3 because I love it. But I started drinking at 11 years old, and that summer was amazing. I got drunk, I got arrested, and I lost my virginity. Not in that order, not in the same week, but in that summer. And that's a running theme throughout my story is whiskey, women, and cops. And I thought at the time, the delusion of alcoholism led me to believe that I knew how to intuitively handle all those situations. And I didn't. The only thing I knew was don't talk to the cops because they're the enemy. And it's not how I live today. So I want to read something real quick from the 12 and 12. There it is. It's on step 3. Bill Wilson writes, made a decision to turn our will and our lives. It's the very beginning, first paragraph or 2. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Practicing step 3 is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key and decisions to swing the door open. There is only one key, and it's called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost by itself, and looking through it, we shall see a pathway besides which is an inscription. It reads, "This is the way to faith that works." And then in the next paragraph, it says, like all the remaining steps, step 3 calls for affirmative action. For it is only by action that we can cut away the self-will which has always blocked the entry of God, or if you like, a higher power into our lives. Faith, to be sure, is necessary, but faith alone can avail nothing. So I led my whole life just wanting to have fun. That's all I ever wanted was to have fun. I didn't care how that fun happened. But when I was 11, I took that drink and then it all made sense. I equate it to like putting butter on popcorn. Like popcorn is delicious, but when I put the butter on it, it's way better. And whiskey is my butter. And so in doing that, I started the slow alienation of me against the rest of the world. Now, for all purposes, when I was sober, when I was drinking, I felt like I was a good man. I felt like I was a nice man. I wasn't a good man. I was a nice guy. But that's not true. Alcoholism allows me to believe every lie I've ever told myself, and it makes it okay because I am always okay with the consequences of that action. You know, and if you're new in here, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. And this step is the one that scared me the most because I didn't understand it. I thought it was all religion, and it's not. I really did like turn them. I mean, that's the first time God appears in the steps. It isn't the first time God appears in the big book, but I wasn't about reading the big book when I got here. I just wanted to not go to jail because I'm a guy that has to be locked in a cage to stop drinking. Like when, you know, still to this day, I'm selfish and self-will. I'm selfish and self-centered. I've got self-will run riot sometimes. But today with third step and the remaining steps after that, and before that, we can control those impulses. And excuse me, it's allergy season. I live in the mountains, and I'm so very sniffling. It makes it sound like I did a bunch of non-conference approved substances, but I didn't. I promise. So, like at 16, I was brought to my first AA meeting, and my dad brings me to AA because he finds me in the yard aspirating on my own vomit. couldn't even make it from the neighbor's house to my house. And my dad had to pick me up. Now, I'm not a small dude and never have been. I wrestled 189 pounds in high school. So I'm 16 and I'm solid muscle and dead weight. And I don't know how this man picked me up, but he did. And he picked me up and he carried me upstairs and he gave me a bath. He gave me an axe, a bottle of Tylenol, and a bottle of water the next day and said, go chop wood. And I did that until I wasn't pissed off, because that's how he got me to work. He just pissed me off, and I'd go and I would just go crazy working. But after that, he tells me to get in the shower and he takes me to an AA meeting. And I want to say the only thing I remember from that meeting is that there was this guy who raised his hand to speak, and he said, he was a huge dude. He said he used to get in the truck and honk the horn until all the cops showed up, and then he would fight them because he wasn't allowed to fight his family. So he was going to fight somebody. And that's how I was when I understood that, like that sentiment I got. And so we leave the meeting and he takes me to a couple more, but his sponsor looks at me one day, and Thomas don't drink on, what's today, Thursday? Thomas don't drink on Wednesdays. But Thomas was this old blind guy who sold books, and that only works in AA. I don't know how you're blind, can't read, and still find a book, but he could, like this little hillbilly wizard is what I call him. And he come to me one day and said, are you liking these meetings? And I said, yeah, I love these meetings. And my dad looked at me and he looked at my dad and said, you're in trouble. He said, regular people don't like our meetings. I'm a lot like my mom in the sense that I love alcoholics. My mother loves alcoholics too, married two of them. And it turns out that this dad who came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 12, he is my dad, and Alcoholics Anonymous got into his life and it changed mine. You know, we might have the only disease that it kills the people that it don't got, but we also have the disease in recovery that changes the lives of everybody that's around us, you know, whether they know it or not, you know. And if that's not some God of mine, if that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. AA has been in my life since I was 12 years old. I've seen this book on a desk, on a table somewhere, and I never read it. You know, I remember I started reading Bill's story and I was like, nope, not me. I never went to war, never walked through a graveyard, I'm not doing it. And I used to find every excuse in the world not to come to Alcoholics Anonymous, because I thought to surrender would be to lose. And, you know, when we talk about step 3, steps 1 and 2 are a lot about acceptance. You know, we have to accept who we are, what we are, and then we can't do anything about it. And step 2 is the ongoing journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. I had this sponsor once, and he used to love to say, step 2 is the seeking and never finding. You know, it's always being willing to go on the journey. It's in how it works. We're willing to grow along spiritual lines. But step 3 was that moment where I had to make a decision. Am I done? And the thing about AA is I was never okay with not drinking, but I felt safe in AA not to do it, because on the other side of that surrender for me, there's not a jail. There's love, there's mercy, there's forgiveness. It's perfectly okay to be who I am in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Alcoholics Anonymous gave me a place, and gave not just me, millions of people, a place to be okay with my dysfunction when I got here. And I never understood surrender wasn't losing, it was just not fighting. Because I fought for my right to drink over and I fought to a point where I died when I was 26. I was on life support for 13 days. I had broke every bone on the right side of my body, my pelvis, my hip, my knee, my ankle, all of them. And my dad looks at me and goes, are you done drinking? I said, for why? It was the truck's fault. So I got sidetracked. Hold on. So yeah, I fought for that right to drink over and over and over again, all the way through death, hospitals, and into jail for this last time. My last drink, last time I got arrested, not my last drink, was October 31st, 2015. And I dressed up like an alcoholic on Halloween and they caught me. And I went to jail and I was okay with it. I got out, drank some more. As long as my parents didn't find out, I was good. And they didn't. And finally, I went to jail for that DUI on April 1st of 2016. In jail, this guy looks at me, and I used to call him Jesus because that's all he did was he had long hair and he used to sit in the bunk and read the Bible. And he said, "You're a criminal." And I said, "What? I'm not a criminal. I just drank a few beers." He said, "You're in jail, dummy." And I was like, "I'm 4 times bigger than this dude, but I wasn't trying to get extra time." So I said, "What do you mean?" And in that moment, and I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and because of that moment, I heard I had to fully concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. Well, first I had to fully concede that I was a criminal and that my actions were dangerous to other people. I'm not a bad man. I'm a good man. I was raised right, just like many of us. And that was a pivotal moment for me. Being in a jail with another guy, having to listen to him snore. It stunk. Jail is the loudest place on earth, by the way. I don't care who you are. It is the noisiest place in the world. Okay. Like, and I put myself there. And my dad came to see me one time and he told me, "You're going to AA, buddy." And that's where I found Mark. And Mark is my journey from step 3, man. Mark's this little wizard, I used to call him. I love Harry Potter. I call people that don't drink muggles. So when I start calling people wizards, don't worry. Like, so, and I remember we were going through steps 1 and 2, and he made a quick work of steps 1 and 2. Step 3, he looks at, I said, "Man, I got to find God." And he said, "Go clean the toilet." And I said, "What?" I said, "Don't you know who I am?" He said, "You walked out of jail. I know exactly who you are. Clean the toilet." What I didn't know was there's a spiritual awakening in service. There's a spiritual awakening in the toilet brush. And I remember looking at him one time and I was like, "I need to find God. I'm so lost, guy." And he said, "God's not lost. You are." He said, "Stop looking." You know? So when I get sober and I come to Baltimore, but step 3 is a constant working factor in my life. I was in a meeting when I was like 2 weeks sober, and I looked at Mark and he said, "Just listen." I said, "All right." And this old timer, long timer, says, I read step 3. I say steps 3, 7. I say steps 3 and 7 every morning. I read 84 to 88. I go to a meeting and I try to help an alcoholic. That little formula's kept me sober 24 hours at a time, many 24 hours at a time. And I said, "Can I do that?" He said, "Absolutely, you can do that." He said, "The steps don't have to be work to manifest in your life, but we have to work them. We have to do them." Like, I don't know if we really work the steps. I mean, I think the only work I do is sponsoring people. But like, the steps manifest in my life when I have the willingness and take some action. I've had so many blessings because every morning I got up and I say step 3, I say step 7, I read 84 to 88. Go to a meeting, and I try to go to a meeting, and I try to talk. I mean, I definitely talk to alcoholics every day. I try to stay in the herd, as they say. And you know, it's amazing to watch step 3 manifest in my life. So I'm looking up, like, I love like root words and stuff, and I love Latin. Excuse me. I'm in a meeting with my friend Mickey, and he was out in Denver. He's given a step 3 talk one time, and he said, and I've hung on to this for forever. The Latin root of decision, the word decision comes from decide, and the Latin word for decide is to cut off. Make a decision. And then, so in my mind, I see a scalpel, right? You know, God's the surgeon. I see the scalpel. And slowly, when I start taking step 3, when I go into a 4, I'm like, that's one of the most vital points is it's faith without works is dead. You see that throughout the book all the time. I absolutely believe that you have a God and you have an understanding of God. And I absolutely believe it works. And from there, Mark looks at me and goes, "Start writing a step 4." And I was like, "I don't know how to do that." He said, "You're the only one that knows the story. You're not the same guy that walked in here, and I want to hear the story." And my first step 4 was, I mean, compared to the ones that we get to do now, my first step 4 was just like, it was like a novel. And you know, it's all about, and he just, Mark just looks at me and says, "Can you surrender?" And I said, "I don't know if I can surrender." And he was like, "No, just stop fighting, man." You know, when we're at war and soldiers surrender, they don't get killed for surrendering. You know, you don't shoot the people that are getting, and that's what AA's offered me. It offered me a safe place to be okay and understand what words mean, you know, and let God, you know, that's what I read, you know, when that 12 and 12. For it's only by action that we can cut away the self-will that has blocked us from entry. And that the key of willingness has allowed Alcoholics Anonymous to help me experience, dying when I get, it's like a dying of the self, right? It's the beginning of it. My former, it's the slow, this is the slower process of allowing me to realize and understand who I was and that I'm not that person. And you in turn help cut away my former self from me, because honestly, I never wanted to. I just didn't want to go to jail. And it's a spiritual program that really works. What we got, 10, 15? 10, all right. So yeah, I'm looking at the Latin root of this, and then I'm thinking about, God having a scalpel, and the scalpel for me is the pen. My friend Matt loves to say the pen, your pen will snitch on you. So I started learning to write these inventories, and going to 5-6 meetings a day. And the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous seem to be ingrained, seem to be taking shape in me. And now all of a sudden, pandemic hits and we don't know what to do. And then I get hooked into this meeting called Bronx Big Book. And I've met most of you actually in this Bronx Big Book meeting. And I didn't understand. I thought I understood the Big Book. I really did. And then this guy comes in one day and says, if you're having a problem with the word God, change God from a noun to a verb. And a verb is an action. It's and then all of a sudden I started seeing where I couldn't do for myself what you can do for me. I'm misquoting that, but you understand. So step 3 in my life today, 4 years ago, I got sick, and I lost the ability to walk like everybody else. So I used to have an artificial hip as because of the accident. And I don't know where this is coming from, but we're going to talk about it. So I used to have this artificial hip, and I had 9 pins in my pelvis, and I had this bone infection. I had osteomyelitis, and some people lose their feet. They get amputated from stuff like this. And so they said to me, my doctor says, do you want to walk again? I said, I'm going to walk again. He said, it's going to be 10 years. The hardest thing about being disabled is not having, because see, when it happened, like I would love to tell you and that I was all AA, I was all in it, I was ready, I was good. No, it was like a dying of the self again. When I got to AA, I didn't have to change much, but just everything. But the thing about that is that you teach me how to do that. So when this happens and the doctor says, we're going to remove your hip or we got to cut off your leg, I said, I'm pretty attached to my leg, so let's keep it. So we do that. And all of a sudden I start to appreciate life a little better, a little more. Because see, AA's taught me, Hugo's here. You're nice meeting you, buddy. AA's taught me that I'm not a victim anymore. Every day when reading 84 to 88 every day, you don't understand. I do it because it tells me that I lack discipline, and we discipline ourselves in these simple ways. So the manifestation of not having self-pity, of not self-seeking, is might want to boot Harry Cock. There we go. So it's amazing to see that come to fruition in real life events. Because see, I can get it. One of my self-pity moments is I get so mad. I didn't know how angry I was before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think a lot of men go through this. I don't think I'm an angry person, but when you take my spiritual solution away, which is alcohol, because I used to have I swear I had a spiritual experience. My go-to, like I'm only 7 years sober, my go-to is still not prayer. Like I'm pretty good at it most of the time, but it's not all the time. And I look at those crutches sometimes and I'll be holding them and I'll get so angry. And you know, when I get angry is when I see a kid running up a hill, or when I see like somebody carrying their laundry, or when my mother has to take the trash out. Like, you want to talk about turning your will in your life over. I have to, because I want to throw those crutches through the wall. And then I realize there ain't nobody to go get the crutches. So I'm gonna look like an idiot crawling on the ground. So the manifestation of that, thank you. Oh, I got it. And the manifestation of that is it's peace, serenity. You know, we got to surrender to win. And that's it. I never understood that statement, because see, I'm in a position now where I love to fight. Don't get me wrong. I love arguing. I argue with about anything. I don't care. Me and Brock can get into it, and she'll win every time, but I just like to argue. But today I get to experience God in a whole new level. You know, there's a line in the big book, and I'll wrap it up. It says our experience is let me read it, because I don't want to murder it, because the words are beautiful. 134. Here we go. Anyway, it's a Henry Ford quote, and says our experiences are of ultimate asset only when we put them to good use. And that's what the 12 steps have allowed me to do, have allowed the manifestation of that to do. I didn't know that this was a spiritual program when I got here. I mean, I did, but I thought it was religious, and it's not. You know, nobody told me what to do. And hold on, I'm gonna turn that off. They allowed the process to happen. When my sponsor looks at me and says, God's not lost, you are, it stuck and it hung at me. Well, how do you find God? You just do things. You do what we say, don't do what you do. And in that process, willingness turns into openness. And then that turns into honesty. And the next thing I know, I'm helping people and I'm putting people before me. I started with 3. 3 is the foundation, right? It's the door, the willingness. It's all, any metaphor you want, but you know, when I started writing about me and then reading it to another person, the application of 3, along with the rest of the steps, allows us to live a happy, joyous, and free life. It tells me that, and I believe it. I think I'm done. I can't wait to hear from y'all. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Wow, thank you so much, Kevin. Do you know what?